Auzubillahiminash-shaytanir-rajim. Bismillahir-rahmanir-rahim. Dear students and viewers, I am Fayaz, Ahmad, learning teacher, High School Gundchabutra. As you know, we are discussing narration. We have already discussed the conversion of assertive sentences from direct speech and indirect speech. We have discussed the change of words denoting position, time and place. We have already discussed rules for change of pronouns. Now let's discuss conversion of interrogative sentences from direct speech to indirect speech. As you know, direct interrogative sentences are those sentences which ask questions. So how to convert these interrogative sentences from direct speech to indirect speech, that is our today's topic. In order to convert these interrogative sentences from direct speech to indirect speech, we have to follow certain rules. These rules are: first, reporting verb is changed into ask, inquire, demand, or some other verb having a similar meaning. The reporting verb, you can see here, this is the reporting verb. I said, he said to me, Sajjad said. This is the reporting verb. And in case of assertive sentences, these reporting verb, they remained unchanged. You can see here, I said, I have seen my brother. In the indirect speech, I used the same reporting verb. I said that, and after reporting verb we use that. But in case of interrogative sentences, these reporting verbs are changed into ask, either ask or inquire or demand or some other verb having the similar meaning. This is the first rule. Second, when questions begin with interrogative pronouns such as what, who, which, whom, whose, or with an interrogative adverb such as when, where, why, etc., the same word is used to introduce the indirect speech, and the sign of interrogation is removed. To introduce the indirect speech, and the sign of interrogation is removed. So when the questions begin with these words, these are the interrogative pronouns: what, who, which, whom, whose. When the questions begin with these words, or when the questions begin with where, why, and when, etc., these are called the interrogative adverbs. In short, when the questions begin with interrogative pronouns or interrogative adverbs, the same word is used to introduce the indirect speech. We use the same word in the indirect speech. When we start the indirect speech, we use the same word to start the indirect speech. If the question begins with what, this is the interrogative pronoun, and in indirect speech we use the same word what to introduce the indirect speech, and the sign of interrogation is removed. Third, when the questions begin with finite verbs like is, when the question begins with is, or, do, will, can, or some other finite verb, if or whether is used to introduce the indirect speech. And while converting direct speech into indirect speech, we do not use the same words. We use either if or whether to introduce the indirect speech. Fourth, change question form into assertive form. The question form interrogative sentence is changed into assertive sentence when we convert it from direct speech into indirect speech. Fifth, that is never used after the reporting verb. That is never used after the reporting verb. As you saw in the case of assertive sentences, we used that after the interrogative, after these reporting verbs. You can see here, I said I have seen my brother. While converting this sentence into indirect speech, I said that. I used that after the reporting verb. So in case of interrogative sentences, this that is never used after the reporting verb. So let us explain these rules with the help of examples. You can see here the first example: he said to me, what are you doing in the office? He said to me, what are you doing in the office? As already said, this reporting verb, this said, it is changed into ask. So here I can write it like this. He said will change into ask. He asked. This said, it is either changed into if the question begins with reporting pronoun what, which, who, whom, etc. Then in that case this reporting verb is changed into ask or inquire or demand. He asked me. Then what are you doing in the office? The question begins with what, interrogative pronoun, and as per the rule second, the same in if the question begins with the interrogative pronouns what, who, which, etc. or interrogative adverbs, the same word is used to introduce the indirect speech. So I will use the same word what to introduce the indirect speech. He asked me what, and I cannot use here that which we were using in case of assertive sentences. So that is never used in the indirect speech when we convert the interrogative sentences from direct speech into indirect speech. He asked me what this you will change into I. He asked me what I was doing in the office. He asked me what I was doing in the office. I repeat, in case of interrogative sentences, this first rule says that the reporting verb is changed into ask. This reporting verb, he said to me, this said is changed into ask, either ask or demand or some other word having the similar meaning. Second, if the questions begin with interrogative pronouns what, who, which, etc. or interrogative adverbs when, where, why, etc., then this same word is used to introduce the indirect speech. Third, that is never used after the reporting verb. So this sentence you can see here, he said to me what are you doing in the office. He said will change into ask. He asked me, and that is never used. We cannot use that here, and we used the same word what to introduce the indirect speech, what I was doing in the office. Let's go to the second example. Teacher said to me, why do you come late to the school? Teacher said to me, why do you come late to the school? You can see here the question begins with the interrogative pronoun why. So we will use the same word to introduce the indirect speech. And this said, it will change into ask. Teacher asked me why. I will not use that because that is never used in case of interrogative sentences. Teacher asked me why I came late to the school. Now let's take third example. The teacher said to the boy, where are you going? I already said this reporting verb, it is either changed into ask or inquire or demand or the similar word having the similar or any other verb having this similar meaning. You can see here the teacher said to the boy. I can change it like this. The teacher inquired of the boy, and I will use the same word if as already said, if the question begins with interrogative pronoun what, who, which, where, whom, etc., then same word is used to introduce the indirect speech. So I will use the same word where he was going. In the same way, when the question is rule third, when the questions begin with the finite verb like is, us, or, do, will, etc., if or whether is used to introduce the indirect speech. So here we can see that the question begins with will, and if the question begins with the finite verbs like is or will, etc., then the if or whether is used to introduce the indirect speech. He said, will you listen what I say? He asked them. So this will change into whether they would listen to what he said. So I repeat, if the questions begin with the interrogative pronouns what, why, where, etc., then the same word is used to introduce the indirect speech. But if the questions begin with the finite verbs like will, is, do, etc., then this will is changed into whether or if to introduce the indirect speech. Let's take another example. Sajjad said to me, can you lend some money to me? You can see here this question begins with the finite verb can. So this can is changed either into if or whether, like this. Sajjad asked. This said it is changed into asked. I already said reporting verb is changed into ask, inquire, or demand, or some other word having the similar meaning. So this Sajjad asked me, and since the question begins with the finite verb can, this can will change into if. If I could lend him some money. So Sajjad said to me, can you lend some money to me? It is changed into the indirect speech like this. Sajjad, this said will change into asked me. This can will change into if, because it is a finite verb, and if the question begins with finite verb, it is either changed into if or whether. If I could lend him some money. Other rules of the narration also follow. He said to me, do you know this boy? Here again the question begins with the finite verb do, and this do will change into if. He asked me if I knew that boy. This will change into that. So this is all about how to change the interrogative sentence from direct speech into indirect speech. Let me repeat the rules. The first rule is the reporting verb is changed into ask, inquire, or demand. This reporting verb, he said, teacher said, the teacher said, he said, Sajjad said, etc. This reporting verb is changed into either ask or demand or inquire or some other word having similar meaning while changing direct speech into indirect speech. First. Second, when the question begins with interrogative pronouns like what, why, where, or the interrogative adverbs like when, where, why, etc., then the same word is used to introduce the indirect speech. Third, when the questions begin with finite verbs like is, will, can, do, is, etc., then if or whether is used to introduce the indirect speech. Fourth, change question form into these question forms are changed into assertive forms. Fifth, that is never used after the reporting verb. After reporting verb we cannot use that. So these were the rules for the conversion of interrogative sentences. In the next virtual class we will discuss the conversion of exclamatory sentences. Thank you.